If you want to hear my thoughts about Dan Campbell's bizarre coaching at the end of the first half of the NFC Championship, then head over to JJ9 News now, where we talk all things NFL all the time. New videos drop daily about the happenings in the league. And now, on with our feature presentation. Super Bowl week is one of the most memorable weeks in the life of any player who plays in the big game. It's a week that they're never going to forget. Years of hard work, sweat, and determination, and years of sacrifice have culminated in this moment, where you're playing on football's biggest stage for the right to call yourself a world champion. This week is unlike any other week that you're playing in, and there's a reason why so many players remember this week fondly if they're on the winning team, or maybe not so fondly if they're on the losing team. But while it's a memorable week if you're playing in the game, regardless of what you actually do, it's an especially memorable week if you're involved in the center of a bizarre drama and controversy. We saw this at Super Bowl XXXIII with Atlanta Falcons defensive back Eugene Robinson. We saw this at Super Bowl XXXVII with Oakland Raiders center Barrett Robbins. And we saw this with Cincinnati Bengals running back Stanley Wilson at Super Bowl XXIII. All of whom made some, shall we say, questionable decisions off the field while on location at the Super Bowl, and all of whom paid a pretty significant price afterwards. Well, this man that you've been watching this whole time is Denver Broncos safety Tyrone Braxton, and prior to Super Bowl XXXII, he was involved in one of the most bizarre controversies that has been lost throughout history more than a quarter century later. Because in the build-up to Super Bowl XXXII, he did everything that you shouldn't do before the game, and did everything that will destroy your reputation and your goodwill, and did everything wrong, to the point where his name would have lived in infamy all these years later like Robinson, Robbins, and Wilson. Except it wasn't him who did those things. It's a crazy situation that we're going to take a deep dive into today, because this is the crazy story behind the bizarre controversy that took place at Super Bowl XXXII. Before I talk about the actual controversy in question, we need some context to understand the importance of the game at hand, and how good the player in question was that was the center of one of the most bizarre firestorms in Super Bowl history. It's January 25th, 1998, and we're in San Diego for Super Bowl XXXII between the Green Bay Packers and the Denver Broncos. The Broncos enter this game as heavy underdogs, and it's not hard to see why. The Broncos, even though it was a different roster, got embarrassed in all 4 previous trips to the Super Bowl, being wildly uncompetitive in those games. The NFC had won every single Super Bowl since the San Francisco 49ers won Super Bowl XIX during the 1984 season. So the NFC was a superior conference and had a streak of 13 consecutive Super Bowl wins, many of which were not even remotely close. And on top of that, the Packers were the defending champions of the league, and were led by Brett Favre, their 3-time consecutive MVP winning quarterback. But still, the Broncos were a very good team that deserved to be in this game, and a big reason why they got to this point was the play of this man right here, safety Tyrone Braxton. Denver allowed the 6th fewest points and the 5th fewest yards of any team in football, and they had a top 5 passing defense in football, thanks in part to their safety, 33-year-old veteran Tyrone Braxton. 1 year before this, he led the NFL with 9 interceptions, and received a Pro Bowl nomination in the process. And in 1997, he was picking up right where he left off, starting all 16 games for the team, and having another sensational season. He had an interception at the end of the first half in the AFC Championship against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a game which the Broncos won 24-21 on the road to upset the Steelers and advance to their 5th Super Bowl in franchise history. He had a pick 6 in a shutout victory against the Carolina Panthers, and had a critical interception in a win against the Buffalo Bills that set up Denver's first score of the game. Long story short, he was an instrumental part in the success of the Broncos during that 1997 season, and this appearance at the Super Bowl was going to be especially sweet for him, because he was one of just 3 players on the team, alongside Steve Atwater and John Elway, who played in Denver's last appearance at Super Bowl XXIV, when they got curb stomped 55-10 at the hands of the San Francisco 49ers. Braxton got humiliated on the big stage before, and he didn't want to let that happen again. So much for that, though. Because despite the excitement of Super Bowl week and all the fanfare associated with it, at the end of the day, this is still a business trip. You're still getting ready for a football game, just as you are for every other week. And this means strict rules when it comes to the hotel accommodations that many coaches put in place, mainly with curfew and who can be in the rooms. Broncos head coach Mike Shanahan imposed a strict curfew for the Super Bowl, with the players having to be in their beds by 12:30 a.m., with the curfew being earlier than that as the days drew closer to the game. Want to stay with your wife? You can't do that. They've got to stay in a separate hotel room. In other words, if you want to have fun late in the night, don't even think twice about it. You can have all the fun you want in the coming weeks after the game when you have no more games to worry about. But right now, you're a football player on assignment. End of story. And you would think that Braxton, especially since he is a married man, having recently married his wife Elizabeth as of this Super Bowl, would recognize that, especially since he had previous experience in the Super Bowl and was an established veteran. But apparently not, because this man right here, Tyrone Braxton, decided to break every single rule in the book and be completely unfaithful in the process. The Broncos were staying at the Hyatt Regency in La Jolla, and as most hotels do, there was a hotel bar. Braxton, sensing an opportunity, decided to drink at the bar, and even bought rounds of drinks for people at the bar. I mean, he had the money to do it. Each player on the winning team got an extra $48,000 for playing in the game, and each player on the losing team got an extra $29,000. So regardless of the outcome, you're getting a substantial payday where you can afford a few drinks. And once he got a bit of liquid courage in the system, Braxton found a woman that caught his eye. The two got to talking, one thing led to another, and then he led her to his room, where the two did a little Marvin Gaye and got it on, if I have to keep it PG. Basically, the two rules that Shanahan had were to not break curfew, and that you couldn't have anyone stay in your room. And not only did Braxton break both of those rules, but he did it while he was married, which is just a whole other level of stupid and disrespectful. And this was especially stupid because Braxton even said that he didn't do what he needed to do to properly get ready for Super Bowl XXIV, saying, "The last time I was at the game, I was so young, and when my family got to the game, they were having a good time, and I probably didn't study as much as I should have to get ready to play. I never wanted to have that feeling again." So for him to do this, I mean, come on. And this was obviously a highly serious offense. This could have been Tyrone Braxton's lasting legacy in the NFL. The man who cheated on his wife during Super Bowl week, the man who would have been suspended by Mike Shanahan for the Super Bowl, seeing as you have to set a standard and you know he wouldn't mess around with that sort of thing, and the man who could have cost the Broncos their season with his idiotic actions. And when Mike Shanahan got the word, he was livid. Oh man, he was livid. Braxton tried to plead his case, saying that he swore that he was in his room and wasn't violating curfew. And Shanahan said, "Yeah, that's your story and you're sticking to it." But here's the crazy part that lends itself to one of the craziest stories and controversies in Super Bowl history. Tyrone Braxton, the man you've been watching this whole time, turns out he was telling the truth. He didn't cheat on his wife. He didn't violate curfew. Turns out it was an imposter. Seriously, here's what actually happened. A 29-year-old man by the name of Ronnie Johnson from Ohio was in San Diego and was staying at the Hyatt. Whether he was there for the Super Bowl or other business-related ventures or vacation is unclear. But what we do know is that Johnson stole a credit card, albeit not Braxton's credit card. Want to know why Braxton was supposedly buying rounds for everyone at the bar? Because it was Johnson doing it, buying $3,000 worth of drinks for people on a credit card that wasn't his. Okay, but if he didn't steal Braxton's credit card, how did Braxton get involved in this mess? Well, as it turns out, Johnson was able to convince this lady that he was Tyrone Braxton and was in town because he was in town playing at the Super Bowl. This either means that this man is built like a football player, in which case, that's impressive that someone genuinely mistook him for an NFL player or this woman is the dumbest woman alive for genuinely believing that he had the build of one of the best safeties in football. Still, Rodney Johnson, pretending to be Tyrone Braxton, took the lady to his room as the two did the deed. And from all accounts, it went well, and she had the night of her life, because the next morning at 7:45 a.m., she called up the Hyatt and wanted to phone Braxton to thank him for the champagne for the fun night. The Hyatt gave her the number to Braxton's room, and the lady thanked her for everything. Braxton's response? What the heck are you talking about? Aside from the fact that he was a married man and wouldn't dare to do such a thing, especially on Super Bowl week of all weeks, it was a completely different room. As Braxton said on the story, someone called my room and said, "Thanks for the nice evening." I said, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Why are you in a different room?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, last night, we were in a different room." I can only assume Braxton's reaction to that final line where she said we were in a different room was this.
We? We.
As Braxton will later say, I was flabbergasted. And yeah, I think I would be too if someone just called me saying thanks for the fun times last night of the champagne and you were asleep and didn't do a thing. Braxton said on this, what ticks me off was that this dude is out having all the fun, and I'm getting the reputation. My teammates are even calling me Rodney. But once it was clear that this wasn't Tyrone Braxton, but rather an imposter that pretended to be Tyrone Braxton, the NFL and the police got involved, and the man was arrested. When Braxton was informed that the man got arrested for using a stolen credit card, he responded by saying, "That ain't all he was doing from what I hear." And obviously, Braxton was in the clear with his coach, Mike Shanahan, because he didn't do anything wrong. Shanahan now believed Braxton and everything he was saying. As Shanahan said, it was just a guy impersonating Tyrone. We called security, and it wasn't long before we caught the guy. These things do exist. Then, with a laugh, he said, "I think we need more security. What do you think?" And for me personally, the craziest part about this story is that the only reason that we knew that it was someone else and not Braxton was because Rodney Johnson was too good at sexual activity. Seriously, think about it. The only reason this got exposed was because the lady had such a great time and such a great experience in his room that she called up Braxton's room to thank who she thought was him. If she didn't have a good time, or if Rodney wasn't good at you-know-what, there's no way she calls. It's a one-night stand that she might just forget about or be so repulsed by that she doesn't contact him again. But no, it was so good that she called a third party. This man got arrested for being too good at sex. If she didn't do that, then the rumors swirl around the hotel, the story gets out, and Braxton is completely screwed, and his life might be completely destroyed. You're honestly telling me that a man who just so happens to be staying at the same hotel as you, and is roughly the same age as you, pretended to be you, a safety of all people? Come on, who's gonna buy that? Who in their right mind would do that? But nope, Rodney almost destroyed Braxton's career and life, but he didn't because he was too good in bed. You cannot make this stuff up if you try. And it's a good thing for everyone involved that Braxton was able to play in the Super Bowl and play in this game right here, because he was a big part in why the Broncos won the game. With the score tied at 7-0 in the first quarter, Brett Favre dropped back to pass and got intercepted by who else but Tyrone Braxton. The pick gave the Broncos the ball in plus territory, and with great field position, they capitalized with a touchdown to take a 14-7 lead courtesy of John Elway. The Broncos won the game 31-24 in one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time, and for the first time ever, not only were the Broncos Super Bowl champions, but so was Tyrone Braxton. This week could have gone a heck of a lot differently for him in a not-so-good way, I'll put it like that. From potentially being suspended for the Super Bowl and having his life destroyed to being a world champion. After the 1997 season where the Broncos won the Super Bowl, Tyrone Braxton would play 2 more seasons in the NFL, playing until 1999. And in 1998, He was a big part in why the Broncos won Super Bowl 33, winning back-to-back rings, as he recovered a fumble in that 34-19 win over the Atlanta Falcons. By the time his career ended, Braxton, despite being a 12th-round pick and having the odds stacked against him, had an incredible career, playing 181 games, recording 36 interceptions, and winning 2 Super Bowl titles. For those wondering, Ronnie Johnson would finish his career with 0 career NFL games played, 0 interceptions, 0 Super Bowl wins, and some time in the slammer. I'll just put it that way. This man right here, Tyrone Braxton, was a heck of a player. There were 28 players drafted in the final round of the 1987 NFL Draft. Only one of them made a Pro Bowl, and that was Tyrone Braxton. Only one of them played in the league until the turn of the century, and that was Tyrone Braxton. Without him, the Broncos are not as good as they are during the 1990s, and probably do not have those Super Bowl titles under their belt. Braxton is still married to his wife, Elizabeth, to this day, as the two have been married for 27 years. But during the week of the Super Bowl, Tyrone Braxton wasn't just trying to defeat the Green Bay Packers. He was trying to defeat an imposter. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.